We met her for a drink. Now, she's from Toronto.
Originally.
But she's living in San Diego for years and years now. And she's like, oh, my God, it's like freezing. I need gloves.
I wanted gloves. Seriously?
It's cold.
I was here a month ago. It was not that cold.
Yeah.
What happens to people when they start living in
Yeah.
warmer climates? They turn into,
They get soft.
they get soft.
Yeah. You get soft in lots of ways as you get older.
Well, before we talk to Michelle, we need to do a little bit of business.
Oh, yes. Let's do the thing.
Let's start with Better Know Framework.
Awesome.
Just imagine the crazy music right now.
Right. It'll be there. You're watching the sausage being made. And none of what we just said is going to show up in the show.
That's called an edit
Right.
point.
Yeah. Everybody say hello to Brandon. Brandon's going to edit the show.
Hi, Brandon.
We love Brandon.
Brandon's awesome.
Yeah, he's going to make the show amazing. So, yeah, every bobble, all those things are all going to get
This
fixed.
is a Thursday show then.
This is a Thursday
you
show.
figured that out?
Oh, no, I've got it all.
All right, that's
I
awesome.
thought, smell up.
Awesome.
All right,
Okay.
coming out of the edit point, Brandon, thank you.
Don't you usually say, so what do you got?
Got out of the edit point again, Brandon. So, Carl, what you got?
Well, other than some really crazy music, I found this great blog post. If you go to tinyurl.com/win8chat, WIN8, the number 8, chat. This guy, Gaurav Mantri, he has a great blog, and this is how I built an awesome chat application for Windows 8 with Windows Azure Mobile Service.
Wow.
What I like about this is he goes down the timeline of this entire project, which uses Node.js, and it's a Windows Store application. But it starts with meeting with boss. Check this out. His meeting with boss. Boss, we need a chat application for our company. Me. Okay, let's get Skype on everybody's computer. No Skype. Okay, how about other chat applications? No. We need to build our own. It has to be a Windows 8 application. Okay, what else? Should scale up to thousands of users. Me, thinking, dude, we only got 7 people in the office, but whatever. Me, what else? It should be cheap. I don't want to pony up large moolah up front. Understood. What else? That's it. So then the guy goes to his thinking chair, and then he comes back to the boss, and so it starts. The guy's got a really great way of explaining stuff, and he talks about the steps from installation to setting up an account in the store, in the Windows Store, to creating his XAML page, and basic, side stuffs about implementing CRUD operations. Like, this is a really nice walkthrough for anyone who wants to do a Windows Store application. And along the way, you're going to learn about push notification.
Nice.
Like, push notification, kind of an important thing, right? In a Windows Store app, you need to send something to it without having to pull for it.
Great find.
Yeah, this is great stuff. We're going to have him on the tablet show.
Yeah, okay.
And by the way, if you don't know about the tablet show,
Who listens to the tablet show that's here in the room? Oh, wow, look at that. And I appreciate the applause for an audio show.
Yeah, it's great.
Putting up the hands. But you have a handful of folks here.
So the tablet show was started last year. Richard and I have got 50 or so episodes, and we got back from Build, and we decided, there's a lot more to this than .NET. And so we wanted to focus on heterogeneous mobile devices, tablets, phones, not just Windows phones, obviously Android, iOS. And we went out searching for guests that are really doing those apps and succeeding, and where they're failing, where they're succeeding, what their stories are.
And of course, this point in the cycle, where we've got so much focus on Win 8, so there's been a lot of Win 8 shows lately, and it sounds like this would be a great one.
Yeah, so we got to have this guy. It's at thetabletshow.com, and like I said, it's at 45 minutes to an hour or so. We just looked at the stats last night. Of all of the PWOP shows, this one is growing the fastest.
Well, it's fun that we started a show in 2011 after having Don and Rock started in 2002 before the word podcast even existed.
Right.
So now starting a new show, it's growing quick. I commend it to your listening. It's completely free, and it's supported by advertisers like all of our shows. So please give us a listen and give us some feedback.
Now, there's one other thing we want to say before we start the show, 2 other things, actually. But we want to talk about our conference in Las Vegas for the listening audience. This is Dev Intersection, and this is something that we have put together, Richard and I, with our friends. Our goal is to do a more agile, heterogeneous show. And that means that we're going to be talking that means we're talking about JavaScript, okay?
Yeah.
This is really what it comes down to. No. Scott Guthrie's going to be there. Scott Hanselman's going to be there.
Michelle's going to be there.
Michelle's going to be there. Richard and I will be there. The Franklin Brothers Band might be there. And this is in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. The big draw for that is that we've negotiated a rate of $65 a night for you.
So you come down for a few days in Las Vegas, and everybody who signs up by November 1st gets a ARM tablet.
Right.
A new generation tablet. So if you'd like a tablet, if you...
Where do I sign up?
Yeah. You're coming already. You're there.
But
So,
if you want to know, it's devintersection.com, December 9th through 12th.
All right.
Okay, before we go any further, I need to tell you that Pluralsight offers...
Wait,
What?
edit point. You're cutting out my piece.
Oh, dude, I totally cut out your
You
piece.
cut out my piece.
I'm sorry, that is an edit point.
There you go.
Hey, Richard, who's talking to us?
Grabbed a comment off of you're going to love this, show 801, which is the show we did with one of our hosts, Joan Rosenblit, when he was talking about Azure's new features. And this is a comment by a fellow whose pseudonym is Curious Techie, but his actual name is Brett Robichaud. He's out of Oregon, and he says, just wanted to comment on the concept of backing up your Azure SQL database. Yes, Azure keeps 3 replicas of all SQL databases, so you're well covered for hardware failure within the Azure data center, but there are 2 scenarios that these replicas do not help you with. One, you submit a rogue SQL query that screws up your data. In this case, all 3 replicas are now screwed up and you have nothing to fall back on. Or 2, the data center you're in fails in entirety for an extended period and now you have no access to your data. Making your own backups are the only solution to these 2 problems today. This is an area where Azure is sorely lacking. They need to be able to enable customers to restore backups of their databases. I mean, Azure keeps backups, of course, but customers have no access to them. Azure should also be allowed to fail over to a replica database in a different data center. Both these features are promised, but until then, it's your own responsibility to keep backups.
Yeah.
Now, Brett, the 3 replicas include one that's always in a different data center. And we've already run into this.
Oh, my God, have
yes,
we?
we have, haven't we?
Yeah, get date. Turns out that changes
Yeah.
on the cloud.
Depends on which data center your stored procedure runs in, you'll get a different time.
Yes.
Ask us how we know.
So, you might have noticed that sometimes .NET Rock shows publish early. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Well, they're actually in the feed before the next day comes, and that's because we ran into problems. Our stored procedures are actually calling get date,
Yeah.
which is going to be sometimes in UTC,
Turns out,
sometimes
when
in
you
Eastern.
don't own the SQL Server anymore and it roams around the globe, time changes.
Yeah, so there is a get
UTC
UTC date.
Yeah, this is a work we've done
Yep.
during the road trip to get it
Yep.
straightened out.
That'll
Good
get
fun.
you universal time.
But the other scenario we painted there, that you can shred your own database, absolutely true. Ask me how I know.
Yep.
You can do it. So keeping your own backup, I mean, it would be nice if we could tell Azure, hey, take a snapshot of my database as it is. Okay, restore from that. That functionality, I'm sure, is coming, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
One way or the other, Brett, you don't have to be right to get a mug. So a mug is on its way to you. And if you'd like a mug, just write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com.
Edit point to Brandon, switch that. Reverse it. Scratch that. No, you put Richard after me, after my Better Know framework. And then we'll go into dev intersection. And now into Pluralsight.
Okay.
All right. And before we go any further, I need to tell you that Pluralsight offers developer training online with experts such as people that you hear on this show. They offer 300 courses plus, and they offer 8 to 10 new courses every month, and all sorts of stuff that they can cover. Just about everything on the Microsoft stack, plus iOS, Android, Java, a whole bunch of stuff on Windows 8 and Windows Store apps. So check them out, pluralsight.com, and subscriptions start at just $29 a month. With that, let's reintroduce Michelle LaRue Bustamante, who needs no further introduction. Give her a big hand again. Last time you were on the show, we did the traditional Michelle ends the show with a dirty joke, which you always do. So we would just like to tell people that on this show, you're not going to hear the entire joke. Is that right?
That's right,
Yeah.
Carl.
You're just going to tell punchlines.
There's a
We're
plan.
just going to do punchlines.
But that's at the end.
Yeah.
At
This
the
is the
end.
beginning. And I really enjoyed your presentation you did here. I know the listeners didn't get to see it or hear it, but we're going to certainly talk to it. But this whole, how startups have evolved and how important the cloud is in that, I'm on board 100%. Can you give us like a 1-minute synopsis of that sort of point of view?
Well, it's really about the fact that, in general, we've evolved to the point where cloud is a commodity.
Right.
Hosting is a commodity. And to some extent, IT, parts of IT operations are commodity.
Sure.
And it needs to be that way in order to be successful as a business these days, because, we need to be able to focus on our business, our core business, not on, other things that are just security related should be commoditizable, hosting should be commoditizable, anything you can delegate and do.
Right.
And so I think that that's what's pushing this more than anything, and also this growing, I guess, trust. Even though everyone's afraid, they're trusting to some extent. Cloud vendors are doing their job. Whereas, 10 years ago when I did, software as a service, which we called ASPs,
Right.
We had to work really hard to get trust.
Yeah.
Really hard.
It certainly has moved on, but I think the biggest thing here is we've just driven down the cost of doing a startup dramatically to the point where...
Like to zero?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for your time, which is worth a lot. But,
Sure.
if you have an idea and you're a founder, you gotta work, right?
But what's great about the cloud is that it's the hardware stuff that goes away for you. The software, operating the software of the cloud still is a necessity. However, for developers like us that like to play with software, that's not so difficult to do. And this is one of your points in your talk was that, these are the configuration settings that I've broken out for my app. I can do this. I'm a developer, but I can do it. It's not
Right.
that difficult.
Well, if you think, if I go back to the era of 2000-ish, I had to do a 24/7 operation in the insurance industry, which means our partners that we needed data from were very demanding. They were very large companies. They were Fortune 500 companies. And their first question was, how do I know you can back up and recover? How do I know how you're securing the data? How do I know that if there's an earthquake in California, you're not going to go away? You need to have a backup also in New York. And about a week later, they had the blackout. But anyway.
That's because
no, I
Richard
kid you
plugged in
not.
his laptop,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I blame me.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you're
really?
right. You end
Thank
up
you.
spending millions of dollars to stand up all
So
this
much.
infrastructure.
$750,000 to get that startup off the ground because we went with Solarix equipment. We went with Oracle because our customers said only Oracle.
Right.
Very, very caro. That means very
Expensive.
expensive in Spanish.
I remember Oracle's licensing model. So how much money you
Yeah.
got?
Yeah, that's
No,
right.
truly,
Yeah.
and you have to license the software upgrades, or else you can't actually have the product, and
Right.
then you don't get the upgrades, and you don't get the support. And then not only that, equipment, and having enough, to scale out, and having promise of replacement equipment, and you have to pay for that with vendors. So think of all of that organization, which clearly we would not have to do today, but it was a ton of work.
Right. Just
So.
to get Hello World.
And
Just to get live
Yep.
and to have it on the right type of equipment and environment that we could somehow prove to customers you can trust us.
But
Because they
it-
wanted to
it's
see the
just
big
plumbing.
iron,
It's still plumbing, really. It's hardware plumbing,
Yeah.
but it's the same way that we use frameworks and software so we can stop writing plumbing.
And we still couldn't see those servers.
Sure.
After we got it in the colo facility, after we had it set up with the internet connectivity and the redundant internet connectivity, everything redundant,
Yep.
we didn't really go in physically to the machines very often, right? I mean, in fact, sometimes, eventually, when the MSPs came about, you never saw the machine. So really, why shouldn't that be a commodity? It makes sense
Right.
why we're here today, which it should be no surprise. I mean, we're here, and it's going to stay.
So for a startup company, this is ideal because there's minimal, if no cash laid out up front. It's all based on how much you use the service.
I have spent
$0.
$0.
So you're in midst of a startup right now.
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, so thanks for the lead-in.
I'm
No.
here to serve. Find a way.
Meatballs.
No, I'm in the midst of after actually several in the past few years. So the one that I'm in the midst of right now is a curation product for collecting and organizing links of content. You might call it your favorite content, but there's different reasons and templates that we're building for that. So there's research purposes, education purposes.
It's also
We're
good
dealing-
for sharing.
in
and
general
working on
sharing,
stuff
and also
across.
private. Don't dismiss the value of a private snapboard. I mean, that's the idea would be I could have all of my stuff. I talked to
Snapboard, that's what it's called.
Snapboard is the name of the business.
Snapboard.com.
Yeah, snapboard.com. So yeah.
So you were saying the private snapboards.
Yeah, like a private snapboard would be all the things I look at every day, like these, places for my son's education stuff, or places that I frequently go to check status of bills and so forth. places that I go, to log in, even if it's, Windows Azure, I know how to type that out, so that's not a big deal. But there's an awful lot of other links that have longer links, and I have to go keep finding them or drill down. And it's just nice to have it at my fingertips. So
and it's not buried in document layers somewhere, right?
Exactly, because
right
have you
there at the
ever had
top.
documents where you save links? You're doing research project on like security or something.
And which document is that in?
And you're like, where did I put those again? So I end up Googling again, right? And then I find different stuff, and it's just nice to be able to go plop, snap it, put it in the snap.
One of the best features of the personalization of Google's homepage was this little thing that you could just like a sticky note that you could put in. And once the guys in my company found that, oh my God, like all the what we call the introductions for the shows, they would put those in there because that was the only place that was outside of their network they could just share
just having
stuff
a
on.
place you can go to and have content.
So this is sort of like that on steroids.
Well, and really the longer term vision is that you would be able to also upload content and host it with us up to a certain amount, so think of it like an organized Dropbox.
Right, an organized Dropbox, very nice.
And then eventually you could have an e-commerce engine behind it and sell stuff. So I mean, we do have a freemium plan, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
the professional version will have other features, but we're talking to a lot of corporations about that kind of stuff because the larger businesses are the ones that will actually pay us, earlier, and we kind of want to have some money in the door to show that we can have a business. The whole.
So you haven't
plan.
taken external funding yet?
No.
Really? So self-funded so far?
Because
$0.
self-funded on
Yeah.
$0 equals hey.
So it costs you your time.
But you are running it
It's
on
my
Azure.
time.
There must be some money being spent on Azure.
Zero.
Really?
I have a BizSpark account.
Oh, okay,
and then
so
I have
you're into BizSpark.
We're BizSpark, and we're actually BizSpark Plus, but I haven't kicked that off yet because when I kick that off, I get a year of $60,000 free. So that means when we're ready to start streaming media, I'll need to start that off.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I don't want to kick that off until we're actually needing to use that because right now I can run it off the basic BizSpark,
So I saw-
and we're not even using bandwidth.
Yeah, this is a good-
But I thought
so it's
BizSpark
free.
was just you got software from Microsoft. Like what all's in BizSpark?
No, BizSpark is a plan that gives you essentially not only MSDN software, which is also useful for the development team, but it also gives you Azure services. So think of it like with your MSDN account,
Right.
you've got an Azure subscription.
Sure.
And in there, you have a certain number of hours you can use, which usually equivalent would be 2 extra small instances for the entire month for free.
Okay.
So that's why it's kind of cool if you're a small business, extra small instance times 2, you don't pay anything on the basic BizSpark or on the basic MSDN subscription.
So if you just own an MSDN subscription and
That's good
pretty
enough.
much if you own a copy of Studio, you own an MSDN subscription.
And you can see how much you're using, so you can sort of monitor that and
Sure.
make sure that you're not going over it. You can actually set it up to where it stops functioning
Before
if
it
you
starts
reach the billing point, but
Wow.
that might be bad for a startup because then it shuts down. So
Yeah.
we
Last
turned
week
that
of each
off
month
just
we
in
don't do
case.
anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
But with now you're talking about a $60,000 level. Like, well, what was
That's
that?
BizSpark Plus.
Okay.
So BizSpark Plus is a program you have to probably ask to get into.
Well, I gotta
and
imagine
they'll
you gotta ask to get
evaluate
into
your
any of them.
startup and sort of look at what kind of services you're going to use and whether or not you'll need that. And I guess you have to qualify. And then.
But isn't that true of all BizSpark roles? Like, how did you get into BizSpark?
No, I think BizSpark is automatic. I
Right.
mean,
You
any
can just sign
startup
up.
that's not making any, up until, what is it, 3 million or $1 million a year or something. So the first 3 years, unless you start making money,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So like if I start making $1
So
million
it's
a year,
no
I
risk.
suppose I'm paying our team, in which case I'm not too worried about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero risk.
Zero.
So you
It's
just
really
signed
zero
up.
risk. I just
Okay.
literally signed up and I was able to start pushing stuff out there and not have it charge me. So we have to watch it, and the things that make everybody nervous right up front is, but how do I know how much bandwidth is really going to be used, right?
Right.
So I put together this monster pricing sheet. I actually have that on my blog so people can look at it, and I keep refining it over time, as our business evolves, because our pricing model against Azure costs is changing slightly with our new sort of, business model. But the point is the costs, of Azure, you have to kind of go down and look, what does bandwidth usage mean?
Yeah.
And, if you're streaming media, then it could mean you have to figure out what's an average size of that media, right? If I was letting people host content with me, then if every piece of content is like, 3 meg, let's say, or even 50, then I got to do the math, right? Like if 5 users reach your one content, and if on average 5 users hit everybody's content, and you multiply that by how many people push content, then I can come up with a calculation that gives me some sort of amount.
Right.
And then I can play with those numbers in the spreadsheet and kind of figure out what bandwidth usage I've got and map that to the costs, and then subtract the BizSpark free stuff and see where my costs lie. And if you look at the spreadsheet that's already on my blog,
Which is Das Blog.
which is at it's at michellelarubustamante.com.
Oh,
Say that fast 3 times.
okay. With one L. Michelle with one L, too.
Michelle with one. I have to spell all 3 of my names because nobody can spell any of them, including my first name. Isn't that horrible?
It's awesome.
I got to change it to Michelle Busta or something.
So at dasblond.net, can you link to it?
Sorry? DasBlonde.net does link to it. So if you can spell Das Blonde with an E at the end, and don't search Google for that because you're going to get all kinds of interesting German things. Just saying.
Just saying.
I picked that blog name sitting beside a German who didn't warn me. Seriously. that was Clemens. Nice job.
Clemens
Thanks,
Fosters.
Clemens.
Yeah. Anyway.
And we will put the links on the show so
Yes.
people can just go.
Yeah.
So it's a great big expense calculator kind of chart.
Right, and the biggest expense, I mean, the end result of our evaluation, when I did an analysis assuming content was being hosted in the service, which means the heavy usage of bandwidth, people downloading and looking at videos and podcasts and things like that.
Right.
That was where most of the cost lied, in bandwidth. Everything else almost was free, looking at the BizSpark, returns.
Right.
And then only the bandwidth, you exceed that pretty fast if you're doing big pieces of content. So that's where that kind of business, you got to have a plan around, those costs. Now, how much is a lot?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's, $1,000 a month, that seems a lot if it's just me or just me and my co-founders and we have no budget and no funding. I mean, I don't particularly want to spend $1,000 a month just for fun. I mean, I'd rather buy shoes, right?
Well,
it
depends on if you're monetizing if you're monetizing your product, though, you may get that back. So
that's what I was going to say is, if it's costing me $1,000 a month, then I probably have X number of users. So that should show traction, which means I should be able to get funding.
Right.
And the next step, of course, is, yes, but at some point the customers have to pay it. When does that kick in?
Right.
And that's where, it helps in order to get funding to know somebody would actually pay, which means a customer who not just says, oh, yeah, I'd use that, because, people say that all the time, and then do they?
Right. I'd use it if it was
they
free.
Gotta prove it.
People do say that.
They got to prove it by putting time in with you.
Right.
Because if they won't even put the time in to help you develop it, they don't need it bad enough.
Right.
In which case you haven't found your customer base.
Yeah, what you want is people frustrated with your product. I mean, they care enough about it to miss the things that aren't there.
And then maybe pay for those things.
Well,
I mean, would you pay $50 a year for this? Like, it's a question, right?
What's the hook? What's the piece that gets them wanting to pay?
Exactly, yeah.
I look at TripIt was great for this. TripIt was free. It did all these great things. But they had the pro account, which I think was $50 a year.
Right.
And the one thing it did that mattered to me most is it sends me a text message about my next flight. So while I'm still on the plane, I turn the cell phone on, and bing, there's that message that says, your next flight's delayed, so you know what you got to do
And they
next.
do it before the airline
Exactly.
does. Which I get those all the time after I've already boarded. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
thanks for letting me know that,
But that's $50 a year, you bet. I'll pay that in a second.
I like that trial model where you get certain features and then you make them miss the features that they want, rather than giving them a trial period where they get all the features and then suddenly,
I'm sorry,
you
Take it away.
can't cut and paste anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're out of there.
Yeah,
No,
if you really
I
want to
agree
cut
with
and
you.
paste, you're going to have to pay us some money. It's like, it feels like extortion.
LinkedIn does that, like
Yeah.
they always give
Right.
you this, this many people have
Right.
checked your profile. That actually intrigued me.
Yeah.
I'm like, who is looking at my profile? I never thought of that. And I went, and then of course it shows you like 3 people, and it says, but there's like 20 more if you want to know.
You got to
You
upgrade.
gotta pay.
You gotta
That's
pay.
right, yeah.
But it's a good hook.
It's a good hook, but
Right.
what's your relationship with LinkedIn now?
But it
kind of
comes-
feels like, hey, I got all the answers right here. You just got to give me a little money. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. You like that?
Nice.
All right. More Marlon Brando. I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Yes, please do.
But
Yeah.
this is not a straight line path. Like, you don't necessarily know what you need to do next, what you need to do next. Like, I've got to think you're really wrestling with the pricing model for Snapboard.
Yeah, well, you have to start with something,
Right.
and then you have to start running it by people. And you're right, because you definitely don't want to go up after you go live.
Right.
It's better
Yes.
to bring the price down.
Absolutely.
But you don't want to charge so much that people
Just
completely
drop
walk
off.
away. But there's another theory to that, and that is, don't be afraid of the first people walking away. You know, like if you put up that minimum viable product and there are people that see it and say, you know, I'm not going to use this. For as many people as there are that will not use it or tell you, there might be people that will actually tell you. And that feedback is so good for your business, you can afford to lose those first couple people that didn't stay, because you're going to learn from the people that cared to tell you, and then you're going to make it better. And then the next group, the next wave, you know, you have to be prepared for that process.
One thing that intrigued me about your demo, that you showed hotspots where people were clicking on the website. And they're basically these little things that show you where on your website people are clicking. How is that possible?
So
what tool is
there
that?
are a lot of tools. There's this thing called Visual Website Optimizer. That's just one example of many. And a lot of these are free. They do the model where you have to pay after a month and
Okay.
very rudely shut it down. And we lost our tests from last month. But I rigged it up one more time just because I didn't have time to research another tool just yet.
Sure.
But there's a lot of free tools, like User Voice is awesome, and they've got a lot of free services. There's still a paid service,
But if you think of it like a JavaScript
Yeah.
programmer, he's thinking, you know, oh, all I got to do is sit and hang in the background, and when they click, find out that X and Y coordinate and send that to a service.
that's exactly what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
you stick in a little JavaScript, and it's the same JavaScript across all the pages. And if you have a common base page in your MVC app, then
What
it's
a
all
brilliant
there.
idea.
It's
'Cause
brilliant.
In one shot, in one picture, you find where the clusters of clicks are
Yeah.
and what people are clicking on they shouldn't be clicking on.
But
it's
you know
the
what's
Billy Hollis
interesting?
elevator button problem
Yeah.
in software.
You know what's really funny? I remember in 1997, I worked at a business where we had a usability person, and she
All
would
right.
go around and annoy everybody
Yeah.
and force us to sit and go through these like paper flows,
Yeah.
workflows, and like, okay, now where would you click here and here?
Right.
Really, really time-consuming stuff, and it was the thing of the day.
Right.
And not everybody did it as a business, but this particular business invested in that in that type of person. Today, you don't even need that because there are all these tools, and it's not just the heat map that tells you, oh, people are clicking this area I didn't expect. That tells me something, right? I
Yep.
should respond to that. But you get the number of clicks. So I didn't show you
Wow.
a different screen where you could actually hover, and it'll show you they're never clicking in this area, they're clicking on this text area, and like the percentages of the
Yeah.
clicks on the page that went here or here or here. So you get some sort of metrics on, how often people prefer to go here than here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't have to do anything, and I got
Magic.
all that information just like that. So it takes
Awesome.
me, 2 minutes to evaluate that and learn?
Yep.
You know?
Doesn't this speak to a larger ideal of, you don't necessarily know what your customer wants or uses or anything like that? Like,
You
get
think
as
you
much.
do.
You think we always think we do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to cast the customer as us.
Right.
And I think we're wrong. But, I like that you said minimal viable products. Like, ship the fewest number of things so that you can be influenced as early as possible.
Absolutely.
And you
It's
learn
so
from
hard
them.
to do, though.
This is what DevOps is all about, right? You're
Right.
instrumenting your code and letting the code tell you. Let the customer tell you without even knowing it
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they're doing, and then you can make another iteration and use that data to make better features.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, if you don't start with minimum, do you know how hard it was for me? Like, I mean, any developer, right? You don't want to show people your code when you're not done, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because nobody, even when you're done,
see
likes
it.
another person's code. I mean, you're going to rewrite it. It's like, But in addition, what about UI? Even worse. I mean, and I'm not a designer. I absolutely suck at design. Like, absolutely 150% suck. If I do this startup without a designer, I don't know how I would get it done. However, the interesting thing is I could go through that first phase. I really could. And you know what? I could probably even go to the MVP. It just wouldn't look as pretty.
Right.
And when you say MVP,
The minimum viable product. I could
Yeah.
probably even go live with an MVP. I would have to struggle and fight and sweat to get some decent looking UI because I just suck at it.
Yep.
But I could get something up that's decent enough with an image and a graphic and a pretty border, and then that would be all I could do. And you shouldn't be afraid to do that
Right.
because you'll hear from the people. And that very early stage, when we went to a customer that wanted to sort of use us as a corporate resource center, and we didn't have the pretty UI yet, and we're like, I I want to talk to this guy. And the first thing he said, I told you in the speech, is,
Yeah.
"Ooh, oh.
How ugly."
Oh. And you could hear in his voice, he didn't say, your shit's ugly. He didn't do that. But what he did is he said, he was sort of like, And you could see that he wasn't engaged, right, in the
Right.
conversation at all. And I think to myself, damn it, it's the UI. I know it. And so I tried to push him in the direction of, okay, so what is the problem you're trying to solve? Because he had a problem he wanted to solve already. And he started talking. And then when he clicked the links, he was like, okay, yeah, I'd really like to see this and this and this and this, and this is kind of how I'd like to use it. Can I send this to my marketing person so she can look at it and we can play with it? And we said, we'll give you a link that you can actually create your own board. It's going to be cumbersome as heck. We don't have our tools in place for you to browse and snap yet, so it's going to be literally super cumbersome.
Right.
And he's like, that's fine, because he just wanted to feel that he could build the resource center, right?
But I also
Anyway,
think
at the end, I just wanted to say is at the end of that, we showed him a mock, a picture of the pretty UI that was coming. And he goes, oh, that's awesome. Can I send that to my marketing person? So, I mean,
Awesome.
it totally proves, of course, better UI is good. But he was still engaged before that. You just have to be brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to do it,
But what I really appreciate about that whole situation is if you'd had the UI, he would have focused on the UI. You wanted him to focus on the features, and that's all he could see was the features.
Right.
So it was maybe that initial resistance. Once he got in, like you
It's
got
true.
the right, you got
It's
the right
actually
engagement.
true. You know what? I'm glad you said that,
Yeah.
because you're right. That's exactly right.
I want
Yep.
the right engagement. I want a guy who cares about the feature set,
Exactly.
not how it looks.
Yep.
If he
Yep.
doesn't care about the feature set, the rest is not important.
Well, and I can tell you a good story about that, because the startup prior to this one, that shall not be named because it never happened,
Right.
It had a name that now will never be used.
Right.
But we went through a different process, and it was a different, slightly different founding group. And one of the focuses was it had to be a killer UI experience. And so literally, we spent a year and a half, I'm kidding you not, under the direction of a team, where our plan was first this, and then, okay, that UI looks good, but it's not enough. We're going to have to build this and then show the VC. And then we built that, and then, no, it's not enough, so we got to add this, because that's like the end game. That way we can show them the whole roadmap with 3 series of things to deploy.
Yeah.
You know what? We spent like way too much time. It was stupid, because basically the goal was if the UI is killer, people are going to love it. And that was absolutely the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I saw that happening, because I learned from it.
Yeah,
and
great
my
education.
instincts told me, why should the UI have to be good? If somebody doesn't need this bad enough, like, we've got a problem, right?
Right.
The UI shouldn't matter that much, because that means we're not solving a problem. But even though that's kind of how I felt, it just sort of, we had this momentum, and you get caught up in it, and then you realize, oh boy, yeah, that was dumb.
Richard, guess what time it is?
Must be that happy time again.
It's the time at the middle of the show where we get to give away stuff.
I love it.
So, if you guys here in the audience don't know what we're talking about, on the .NET Rocks page, there's this Get Free Stuff button. You click on that, and you can join the .NET Rocks fan club. And the .NET Rocks fan club allows you to win stuff. So, what we're giving away today is a Telerik DevCraft Complete Collection.
Nice.
Which is everything that they do in one box, including support. It's worth a couple of grand. And our winner today is Carlos Redondo. So let's
Congratulations,
give him a
Carlos.
clap.
Big hand for Carlos. Normally we do a golf clap, but since we have all these hands,
That's
we can get a big
right.
clap.
Carlos, everybody say hi to Carlos. Hi, Carlos. Awesome.
Awesome.
He's feeling very special right now.
All right, and in December, we're going to give away the big prize. We're still arguing over what it's going to be, but $5,000 worth of technology.
We've set aside $5,000 for a lucky winner that we get to handpick what they want. Maybe we'll give them a couple of options.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think during the road trip, we were arguing about this, but
Right.
I'm still hooked on the whole MakerBot thing, a 3D printer.
would you like a 3D printer?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. And with a computer, I mean, for $5,000, we can get a 3D printer and a computer, maybe a Wacom tablet so you can help draw out the objects, all the software. Like, that could be a complete 3D printing solution. About
Yeah.
$5,000.
And a Surface, maybe.
Yeah,
we could probably throw
need
that
some
in.
kind of computer. Maybe it should be a Surface. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
we'll
was going to
see.
be specific.
And by the Surface, I mean the tablet.
Yeah. Not the table.
Not the table.
Yeah, which is now called Pixels.
But we found, speaking of 3D printers, you told me yesterday that they just made a guitar with a 3D printer.
Through a 3D printer, which is crazy. But
That's
yes.
crazy.
Now,
A playable guitar.
playable guitar. The body, the hollow body is plastic.
Yeah.
And they got good resonance out of it. And then there was a set of stainless steel components they made with a sintering 3D printer. But this, we're going to have to do a geek out just on
We will.
additive manufacturing. So
Yeah.
it's not just making, little Warhammer 30,000 things out of plastic. It's also the metal construction. There's a lot of different technologies. This whole idea of rather than carving stuff away,
Right.
making stuff,
You build it up one molecule at a time, which is
maybe not
crazy.
quite that,
Is this one of those because I can things?
Yeah, probably.
I think additive manufacturing is a very big change overall.
All right, we can talk for hours
Hey,
about this.
now we're gonna
but
do a whole other
we're
show
derailing
right
it. But Michelle, if we told you we have $5,000 for you to spend on technology, it doesn't have to be developer or anything, what would you
What would you want?
A whole lot of snapboards? No.
No shoes. Shoes don't count.
Oh, I can't have shoes?
You can't have shoes.
No.
We could put technology in
Technology
shoes.
shoes?
Okay, if you gave me that much, what I would want? I would want, well, I don't have one of the tablets yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd want a tablet, but
You can't spend it's $2,000.
But that's
about
not-
it for
You got a
Yeah,
whole lot
that's-
of tablets for that.
yeah, that's a whole lot of tablets. So a tablet and shoes. No.
And shoes.
A tablet and probably, that's a really good question. I want like that, a new upgraded flip with all the devices for recording
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
some software for making cool videos.
So a video
like
recording.
producing
How about
video
a nice
recording,
video camera?
really
Yeah.
nice video camera, and
Nice
really
HD
nice
camera.
video recording type of
and the software set up
And
on a
software
machine.
setup.
like
That's
this,
a great
like the
idea.
stuff I saw back there today.
Oh,
because
yeah,
I thought
okay.
that rocked.
This whole studio.
This
setup.
whole panning
That's
to
a
videos
great
and stuff.
idea.
I want that for my house just for fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
a video
love
premiere.
A video rig.
Yeah.
I
We
love
can
that.
definitely do that for
Sure.
$5,000.
Yeah, $5,000 is perfect.
Nice.
That's awesome.
All right, where were we
I
before
was
we were so
going
rudely
to
interrupted?
jump back into this whole conversation about the minimal viable product being influenced by the customer and getting away from the UI, like focusing on the real feature. In fact, you want that feature to be so compelling that they'll fight through the awkward UI to use that feature. Like that to me seems, if you make it glitzy and easy, anybody will play with it. Right?
Right.
They're in awe of how pretty your UI is.
Right.
To make a feature that, even though the UI sucks, I still want this.
Right.
That to me seems like you're getting real data there.
Right.
You're not just humoring yourself with people liking how pretty your stuff is. They're getting into the feature that matters and you're fighting for it.
Right. Exactly. Looks, are
I'm
just the surface.
I'm
so,
still wrestling with how do you know you have a minimal viable product?
So you have to go through the feedback phase.
Mm-hmm.
The early feedback phase would be when you're talking to people about really the core features that will go into the minimum viable product. So, it's hard to say without an example. So
Right.
for us, the example was, look, what's the core of the product? I should be able to put links I care about into category buckets. And I should be able to, after I do that, drill down and get at them quickly and get to those pages. Like that's
Search?
the core of the product. It's just basic. There's
No
all
search,
kinds
no.
of stuff. So, that's like future, right?
That's
it's like
future.
roadmap.
All right.
But until you have a massive content, search is useless, right?
Sure.
So it's
It's easy
just
to find stuff when
what
there
is
isn't
it?
any stuff.
It's I need this. I need a board. I need to organize stuff. So that's all I need to show, and I don't even have to show. So this is maybe a good example to give you an idea. We know that you have to have a browser plugin
Yeah.
to be able to,
Snap
browse
stuff.
around and snap stuff, right?
Yeah.
Just like with Pinterest, you go to a site, you click it, and say, I want to pin it, and then they've got this tool, and then it brings up like images you can choose, and it's super easy, right? It's the same idea. And we have prototypes of those, but we didn't show it to the customer on
Right.
purpose.
Yeah.
Because just the fact that the customer would say, are you going to give me even though we already think we know the
Right.
answer,
Right.
isn't it good to hear that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
So
your-
rather than showing it in advance,
And
as
let
an
them think
obvious
they
thing
came
we're
up
going
with
to
it.
do,
Yeah.
let them ask for it
Yeah.
because it tells you, yes, they want that.
Yes.
It validates you because you think it's obvious.
And you say, that's a great idea. You're a
Right?
genius.
But the
But
far
then
more
I got
telling
other
thing
people
is-
talking about completely different things.
Right.
Like I said, oh, you got a link to your Twitter or this or that, and they're like, but can I get like a consolidation of my Twitter and my Facebook feeds, and then have that show right there?
Yeah.
Like just they're giving me feature ideas,
Interesting.
right? That
'Cause
we may not have
if you
thought
had
of.
led with the plugin, they probably never would have
Right.
talked about that.
Yeah,
Or
you're
if
right.
or if I had led with other things we want to do with RSS or this or
Right,
that,
right.
if I told them the roadmap,
Yeah.
then basically I'm not going to hear them say maybe some other idea.
Well, not only that, but you're setting them up for disappointment. Like you're telling them all the things that they can't have, like me with the Connects today, right? Connect is sponsoring the road trip, but I don't have any now. So I just thought I'd tell you that to disappoint you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's really a technique here about how to be willing to be wrong. Don't feed too much information. Like actually let them guide you. Don't guide them.
Right.
That's not easy.
It's really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially
because you want to show your best, right?
Yeah. And
it's like going out without makeup on.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, all the time. But I also think that we're in the business of solving problems, and we tend to just want to solve them rather than to be influenced.
Oh, and if I told you how many times I have conversations like with I have 2 developers on our team,
Sure.
right? And how many times we'll have discussions about ideas, and they're like, "Oh, I should prototype that." It's like, dude,
easy.
we actually have to have stick to the plan,
Yeah.
Right.
because you're never going to get the minimum viable product out if you try to do it all. And it's so obvious. You have this long list of things you want to do, and you want to attack all of it, and then you start feeling like, oh my God, I have to have money in the account before we can attack all of this. But you don't. Do just the basics and do it cheaply. And let's start seeing if you can show traction, because that's the number one thing that'll get you money.
Right.
That barring customers paying, which is another way to get money, but you need more of that. So it's probably better to get a little influx of seed capital or something. If it's a real business,
Should you be a skeptic of your own product then? I mean, you keep pushing back on this.
Yeah.
That's
because you know what?
'Cause you
Think
have to
about
be a
it. How many
believer.
companies fail?
Lots. Most.
Lots and lots and lots
Yeah.
fail. But why do they fail? I mean, it's been discussed here and there amongst many of the lean startup people.
Right.
So I'm not innovating here by saying that you fail when you don't listen. You fail when you don't find the customer that you're looking for. One of the startups that I was talking to, I go to these startup meetups in San Diego, and really great group of guys. They do messaging. They have a core messaging framework product that will automatically let you SMS or Facebook message between people, and you can build a UI in front of it. So like for our product, Snapboard, we could have like comments underneath the snaps. Why would I write all that code, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to use somebody else's product because that's not my core business.
Yeah, and it's a known
And
technology.
I should see if people even want to use messaging before I go and spend developer time on that.
And again,
So-
that scenario, you want people coming to you going,
Right.
I need messaging here.
But when they got to a framework, they actually didn't start out planning to build a framework. They got there because they had customers they were working with, and it landed to where they pivoted the business plan.
Wow.
Because originally they were going to do all the UI, and they had other plans, some of which details I'm not privy to. But he said, we pivoted big time to become an API because we found a big customer that wanted to pay for that.
Right.
And so they've got enough with that customer to launch them into the next phase of the business.
That also sounds hazardous, too, that you end up building a product for a specific customer and not one for any other customer.
Well, they have plans for the masses on the same API framework plan.
Right.
So that in general was a shift that this is what people want. And then yes, they've got a big customer that's taking over a little in order for them to meet their needs. But I don't think that's bad, because now they're going to have a customer that's loyal, that's getting them off the ground, while still they have this list of minimum viable features they're still going to get in. And then they're going to go live with that and continue to satisfy their roadmap, right?
Yeah, I do think
It gives them some stability.
It's got to be a balancing act, though, because the customer's going to keep demanding more. Hey, we've given you money,
Right.
and put a lot of pressure on you to go that direction.
You have to have agreements up
Yeah.
front.
Well, I think you've also got to keep your eye on the horizon, too.
You do.
What was the long-term goal here? Was it to
Yeah.
support this guy, or was it to build this other product?
You have to, there's really no way to guarantee that except
Sure.
for to work with the customer and say, okay, what is it that you want as a priority set of features? And then you line that up with your roadmap, and you have to come to some agreement on a plan. And I'm sure you do that before they give you money.
Yeah, I think it's part of the challenge.
There's got to be some trust relationship there.
I also think those things are going to change over time. Like, you may go off the track from there.
Yeah. But you're right about staying on the roadmap, because you're right. You don't
For
want to
sure.
deviate from the long-term vision
Yeah, but
of the
money is
business.
almost poisonous in that scenario, isn't it?
It can be
Yeah.
if they take you too far away from your vision.
Sure.
But if it's like for us, we've got a customer potential, and they really kind of want what we've already done.
Nice.
And the only thing we would add, let's say, to satisfy them that we wouldn't have done MVP is some of the branding capabilities that people, might pay for in the future.
So I want to ask you about, you mentioned really quickly some of these tools that you've used, in your startup.
Yeah.
And let's run down the list, because these are,
Yeah.
the tools that you use, I think, are valuable to the people, because if they're good enough for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Google Analytics is really good for tracking and measuring. You saw a bit of a sort of, I would say, a comparative tool to that in my screenshots, which was the Visual Website Optimizer. But they only do so much, right? They give you the immediate visual stuff, so we started with that.
That's
But
the
Google
heat map stuff.
The heat map stuff.
Yeah.
And they do other things like conversion rates, like how many people came to our front page that actually clicked the sign up button. It's, how many, that conversion rate's really important. It tells you that when the page is working. It tells you that people are compelled to sign up or click that button. So it doesn't have to be sign up. It could be how many people, when they get to this page, click here. The ads, are the ads working? Are people hitting our ads? I mean, you're going to have your own internal metrics to get, if you're tracking ads, to say how many people are clicking, so that you can give those metrics to the ad company.
And did Google Analytics slow down your product at all? Did you find that you had to move it to the footer?
No.
No?
No. But the thing is Google Analytics has a lot of layers, and you can play with it in your own way. A great video on that, just a plug for my buddy Zoiner Shahada, too, because he did a Pluralsight video on how to use Google Analytics. Scream.
Everybody scream.
Now.
Nice.
Take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting, we have noise from the next room. They're
That's
getting
right.
a little too excited.
Everybody's a little excited. You
we have
said
to
Google
knock 'em.
Analytics and the room went crazy.
Yeah, I know.
We have to knock them down a little.
But you do want those metrics, right? So
Right.
so imagine this: we put so little code up just to get the request to invite live, and we did that to start getting the word out, right?
Right.
And then we added samples. So one of the biggest things that was important to us is that we're actually measuring those things. I had to get something in quick and easy.
Right.
Because if I don't gather that information, putting that live is useless to me. Because now I have no sense, except for the actual signups, of how many people visited and didn't. And that's important to me, right? Or when you get in and look at the samples, how many people went in and didn't click at all and said, screw this, I'm out of here, You want to know that. So the conversions are important. So those are good tools. User Voice is really cool because they do all User Voice. They have a feedback tool, so you can have actually a whole forum where people can talk about your product. And we've built one too, but we haven't linked it to the site yet. So that gives you a way for people to have random conversations, post things I wish I had.
Yeah.
And it's free. I mean, there's paid services, but there's a lot of free stuff you can do with User Voice, including polls, asking questions. The poll that we did, we used another tool for that, but I think I would go to User Voice in future.
Okay.
Just because they've got a more robust free model.
And it's stuff you can just hook up with
and
JavaScript?
It's like JavaScript. You plug it in and you're done, Like just quickly tell me which logo color did you like, whatever. You know?
Great.
Yeah.
So how are you doing A/B testing with this, or are you doing
that
A/B
was
testing?
Visual Website Optimizer,
Right.
and I love A/B testing. It's awesome.
So you're putting up two different versions of the site at the same time?
So what you do is you have your main site, say www.snapboard.com, and then you have like another URL, like say b.snapboard.com or whatever it is you decide to do. In our case, we did it with websites. So we did it with the free version, so it wasn't actually the Snapboard URL. So it was just, whatever. Anyway, you link up two links. One of them is the one people hit, and they randomly send people to the other one.
Okay.
And then they do the heat maps, but comparatively. So you can compare them side by side to see, which
again,
people
they don't know
were
they're
more
being
engaged
tested.
on A or B, and that gives you an idea which UI is working better for you.
And they don't know they're being tested. They're just
They
using
don't
your
know
product.
they're being tested.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Mm-mm.
Which is,
great.
I think, really important.
Really important.
I love that. And it can make sure that the same person always gets back to the B if that's where they went, so that they keep experiencing that. So you can see how often they go back and use and interact with your site. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, how long would you run an A/B test like that?
As long as you need to get enough input. So
Right.
I think that's a really
days?
that's a judgment. It could be weeks. It could be I would imagine weeks is about right, because if you're actively updating your product,
really comes
then
back to
you're
the
probably
velocity of your site,
putting
too.
together new pages to test with, right? Or new screens to test with. Like our next A/B test would be around how do you snap things. Our A/B test after that might be how do you view a snap that's actually content hosted with us or whatever.
Right.
It could be anything. So,
cool.
There's lots of different things.
Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us about Snapboard before we
Oh,
wrap
no,
it up?
not specifically. I mean, I think it's more important maybe if anybody has questions about startups and Azure, that we answer those. So
Sure. Well, we were just ready to wrap, I think, but I think we can take a couple questions.
Any
You're
questions?
gonna
from
wrap?
the
Let me
audience?
wait before we wrap. Let's take questions, but I want to cut that out
Okay.
as
Okay.
as an edit point. Do we have any questions for Michelle from the audience? All right, hang on, Sarah.
Just in general, like when I speak very generally, how do you get customers to come in and look at your product?
So just getting somebody to the Snapboard site.
yeah, so I tweeted that, and I got a bunch of people from that. I was actually afraid to. All my 5 followers, if they all came at once, what would happen? No, I'm just kidding. I don't tweet a lot. I should, and that's a big problem because you actually need to build a following.
Sure.
I have an advisor, Mr. Daniel Egan, who's going to help
yes.
me
Yeah, Mr. Egan.
understand how I can better leverage the social stuff, because I have to admit I'm not the best at it, right?
But when
I'm too busy. I'm so busy.
But it really came down to you tweeted and you got some traffic.
I did. I first went to Facebook because I wanted to do it sort of more privately, just to
Right.
see what happened. I was nervous, right?
Right.
And then I tweeted, and I got a bunch more. And then I think a few people retweeted.
Right.
And so then that expanded. But again, out of those tweets, I mean, think about it. It's all a numbers game. How many people you have following you? I mean, somebody has 30,000. There
Right.
might only be 100 that actually looked at that tweet, and maybe only 50 of those will actually go to the site.
Right.
So if you only have 1,000 followers, like maybe 2 people are going to go to your site, right?
Sure.
So then I emailed some of my internal lists to say, hey guys, friends, could you like hit it for me? Like I just want to get some metrics. And that was not really about customer feedback. That was more about getting metrics.
Right.
So I think if you don't have a following on Twitter or people to go to that way, it becomes more challenging, I suppose.
Right.
Like,
See,
how do
'cause
you
it's
get
sort
the
of just
word
in the
out?
friends and family phase. If you really want a customer, it's like, give me a customer that
Yeah.
doesn't have a previous relationship with you.
Right, exactly. So I guess you'd have to be out there blogging. You'd have to be out there on maybe TechCrunch and some of the startup communities to try to build a buzz. So you've got to have somebody proactive on how do we market. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to start not having as much time to code, for example, even though I can.
And hey, I'd like to give Michelle Bustamante another great big round of applause. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rock!